And you can see here that the data is historic information and future information for this specific field. Now, if I wanted to see all of my fields on one screen, I could click on this little plant icon here in the upper left corner. When I click on this plant icon, it now turns into what was previously known as the cropping grid. Today we're going to talk about annual view. Annual view is the exact same thing as the cropping grid. It allows you to see all of the fields within your plan and see previous crop information and current crop information. So now let's jump into version 3 to show you what this new annual view looks like in V3. Alrighty, so when we're at V3, you're logged into your account. You're going to go and click on a farm to open. We're going to work in this Wisconsin Land and Water example. Now that my farm is open, I'm going to want to navigate to the Management tab. Once I'm in the Management tab, I'm now going to talk back to what this looks like in version 2. So again, we are on the field view. This is an individual view level of a specific field. So here when we click on field names, we can toggle between and we can see information specific to each individual field. Now, depending on how you like your preferences, you can sort your years to ascending or descending order. So currently, I have the oldest years up at the top. Oldest historic data for this field is 2017, and that's up at the top. I I prefer to see the most recent years up at the top, and so I'm going to click reverse order. Now you can see we have our black box, which shows us what our rotation is set for this field, and we have our most recent year up at the top. Again, this is completely just a preference thing, but if you want to switch that, you're going to click on the gear icon on the far right side, and then make sure the blue check mark is selected here for reverse order. All right, so this is what is known as our field view. Again, it's specific per an individual field. If you were to click on the annual view, this is the view that you would see in version 2 if you were to click on that little crop icon in the upper left corner. The annual view is going to look very similar to version 2. Here we have all of our field names, we have our plant seasons, our current crop, and then over here we have our previous crop, yield goals, and tillage. You can see that there's a ton of data here. All of this data is sortable. So for example, if I wanted to make sure that I could take a look at all of my alfalfa fields, I can click here on these up and down arrows, and it's going to sort my crops alphabetically. So now here I have all of my alfalfa fields, and I can see exactly which ones are alfalfa or how long, were they seeded last year, all information that I can see right here. If for some reason this is too crowded or you don't like seeing all this information, you have the power to eliminate columns. To do that, you're going to click on the gear icon in the upper right, and you're going to click on Show Hide Columns. Now, here is where you get to pick and choose which ones you want to remain on this screen. So you can say, I'm more or less just interested in what the current crop is planned for this field and the previous crop. I don't really care about the recs right now, or the over/under values. I really want this to be just pretty simple so that I can see what my current crop is and what my previous crop is. And once you do that, the columns kind of automatically adjust to your screen size and give you a little bit more space, and you're able to see exactly the type of information that you'd like to see. Additionally, if you didn't want to sort by using these tabs here on the screen with the up and down arrows, you're able to come over to this gear icon again and click on filters. So here we're going to do the exact same thing where I was sorting and wanting to see my alfalfa. I'm going to click on crop as the filter, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use this drop down and select alfalfa. And so now I'm only seeing my alfalfa fields. My list of fields is extensive, but now that I've filtered only to alfalfa, that's all we're going to be seeing on the screen here. One neat thing is that you can filter multiple crops at a time. For example, let's get out of alfalfa. But let's say you're looking at what your corn grain and your corn silage fields are. You can select both of those options and you can select multiple and it's not going to yell at you. But I thought that was really a neat feature because sometimes you think you're filtering down to just one thing and then you kind of are stuck there. So let's get back to alfalfa. Again, I have alfalfa chosen as my filter. And now this is a really nice opportunity to where if I have a specific fertility program that I use for just my alfalfa fields, I could make a group so that I can later apply the fertility to this group. So I'm going to click on this gear icon up here and I'm going to click Create New Field Group. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to name this alfalfa. And then I need to choose the fields that I want to be in this group. I'm going to click on this check mark in the upper blue header to select all of the fields in this list because again, I've already filtered down to my alfalfa fields. Now that I have my group named and I have all of the fields selected, I'm going to click on this check mark to confirm changes. So now I can look at this drop down and I can see that I have a couple different groups made. I have my alfalfa group. I have a corn soil test P group that has soil test P greater than 30. And I have another example group that I've built. So once you create a group, you're able to automatically come through and choose that information based on this selection. If you don't want to be filtering down to a group, you can remove that group and it will automatically update to show you all of the fields. So again, this is a plan that has quite a few fields in it. And so I saw the progress bar go across, but let me just do an update here to make sure that all those fields come back. Okay, so there they are. Alrighty, so now I've made a group. I want to show you guys a quick and easy way to apply nutrient systems to that group. So to do that, I'm now going to click on the Nutrients tab. Once I'm in the Nutrients tab, I'm going to click on Nutrient Systems. And then I want to come in here and I want to find my alfalfa group. Well, sorry, my alfalfa nutrient system. So here I have already previously created a nutrient system for my alfalfa. It's my AMS and my potash applications. I'm going to select Use System. And now once I have come in here and I'm going to apply this nutrient system, I want to make sure that I'm applying it to specifically my alfalfa group. So to do that, I'm going to toggle down here in this field group section and find alfalfa. So here are all of the fields that are my specific alfalfa fields. I'm going to select all of them here and bump them all over. Now that they're selected, the next button becomes available to click. And now I'm going to choose the crop year that I want these nutrient applications to take place in. And let's just say I'm going to have them take place in 2026. I'm going to click Apply. And now I was able to take that group that I built on the annual screen and apply a nutrient system to all individual fields. Let's go back over here to the annual view. So again, I clicked on management and then I clicked on annual view. And now again here, I still have it filtered down to my alfalfa fields. But let's say I didn't necessarily do the exact same fertility on all of my alfalfa fields, but I want to go in and make individual applications to kind of account for those differences. To do that, you can select a field and you can come in and click on Nutrient Applications in the upper right-hand corner. That's going to open up our nutrient application planner over here, and it's going to see that in 2026, I made my applications with my nutrient system, and you can see them all right here. This gives you an opportunity where you can say, okay, this isn't necessarily correct. My midsummer potash application didn't happen. I can come in here and delete that, and I can go through here and do that for each of my individual fields. For example, too, if field 12, let's just say it has a different historic cropping system than what my other alfalfa fields did, and I needed to apply a different fertilizer to it, you can do that here still too on the annual view. All you do is click on the plus new fertilizer and come in here and you can add whatever your application was. And we'll say that that was a 200-pound potash application. So the big things that I wanted to just highlight for you are that the annual view allows you to see all of your fields in one place at one time. It also allows you to make individual application changes when you click on a specific field in this list and use the nutrient applications button to make those changes. Additionally, though, the annual view is a really great place to make groups. You can filter and sort by the headers. You can also use the gear icon to come over here and check different filter options. Once you've filtered down and gotten the specific information that you have, for example, we did the alfalfa, you can come up and click on the gear icon to create a new field group. Once we created that new field group, to do a batch update of applications to all of those fields, we went back over here to the nutrient section, used nutrient systems, and applied that alfalfa system to all of the fields in my specific alfalfa group. So you're doing the exact same stuff, just a couple different ways to do it and go about it, just depending on how the system is that you're working with. The other thing I would like to show you, again, we're going to come back to the annual view, is we talked about how you can change these headers and you can add or see or subtract things that you don't want to see. So with this show hide columns, you're able to come in here and choose exactly which columns you want to see. So I'm going to come back in here now and I'm going to turn back on soil test P. I want my cropping acres to be here. I want my historic cropping information to be here. And then I also want what my current plan is for this current year. So what I have selected is what I want to see for right now. What I'm going to show you is a way that you can kind of build your own report with exactly the information that you want to see on it. To do that, you're going to click on the gear icon, and we're going to click on this Export to CSV. What this is going to do is it's going to export the exact table of data that you see here on your screen. So I'm going to open up this file. And the reason I'm showing this to you guys is because I've had a couple conversations with some agronomists who are asking for a report type format that they can export field information and then share it back with a farmer so that they can work on their updating of their plan for the future year. So in this example here, we can say that this previous crop here was our 2025 crop. And if I wanted to alter this report, I could come in here and say that this, instead of previous, to be more clear, I could say that this was my 2025 crop. And then over here, I could say that this is our currently planned 2026 crop. And the farmer then can come in and say, yes, I agree with alfalfa. Or if you don't have any idea what that next upcoming crop is going to be, you can come through and, clear all of this information out. And then the farmer is able to use this spreadsheet to either, type in the information that they're going to have for their crops, or they can just handwrite it. And so what this does, it allows them to see what you previously did on this field. You can also kind of include the soil test P information so they can see where their higher soil testing P fields are at versus these lower soil testing P fields if they end up doing different sorting or different fertility plans. So this is a nice, easy way for you to be able to create a report for yourself and then edit things and make it exactly what you need to be able to collect data back from your farmers. So I'm going to close this. And again, just to show you, dependent on what columns you have showed on the screen, those are the columns that are going to appear in that spreadsheet. So if you want to make sure that you have all of this data included on that spreadsheet, you're going to want to make sure that all of the columns are visible before you come over here and click Export to CSV. Again, just gives you a bunch more data and information to work with. Alrighty, I think that is where I'm going to stop for right now. I'm going to quickly check to see if there are any chat questions. Oh, it looks like Anthony answered that one for me. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I am going to turn it over to Alonzo, and he is going to introduce to us the Easy Group Builder feature.
Thanks, Andrea. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Um, yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Alonso. I'm a software developer on the SnapPlus team, and I'm here to demonstrate the Group Builder, which is a new feature in V3 that allows you to create custom field groups and Excel reports based on several field, rotation, crop, and application criteria. There are two ways to find the Group Builder. The first way is here on the Fields page at the Group Builder tab, but you can also go to the Reports page and head over to custom reports and you can find it there too. It'll work the same in both places, but because you can make groups and also make reports, we put it in both places on the site. Um, and so to create a group, it's 3 steps. You choose your criteria, you filter your fields down, and you create your group. 3-step process. So in the first step where you choose your criteria, you select the criteria you want to use to filter your fields. You can select any number of them, and then when you're done, you click next. So I'm going to be making a group of high soil test P fields. So the criteria that I'm going to pick are name, cropping acres, crop year, crop name, and average P over here. And so I'm going to click next. And then this is the big part of the group builder where you filter your fields down, where you can create filters using the criteria you selected. And yeah, you can kind of see the list of fields get filtered down on the right side here. So I'm going to make a filter for average P being greater than 30. And you can note that now the field of 21 fields is now 15. One thing to note is that actually something I want to show you on the first page over here. So I'm using a CAFO, and CAFOs have a different set of criteria than the 590 farms. So you might see here water table within 2 feet and bedrock within 2 feet. CAFOs have a little more options here for the criteria. Just want to point that out before I move on. So yeah, as you can see, the fields have been filtered, and so I'm going to hit next. And now I'm just going to create a group. So it's pretty simple. All you got to do is write the name, and so I will write, let's see, high soil test P fields, and then I'm going to click create group. And you'll see this message, that mentions that you successfully created the group. And now if I go back to the fields page, you can see that you can now use that group as a field group anywhere in the app. So that's pretty cool. And then the second thing that I want to show you is making Excel reports. So I'm going to go back to the group builder, and I'm going to make a spreadsheet of fields with CAFO-R and CAFO-W restrictions. So what I'm going to do for that, the criteria that I'm going to select is name, cropping acres, and then the ones I mentioned earlier, water table within 2 feet and bedrock within 2 feet. And then I'll also pick crop year. So I'm going to hit next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter to crop year 2025. And I do that because we save field, at V3, we save field restrictions by year. So if you pick just one year, you'll get one row for each field. Which is kind of a little thing to know when you're making these reports. And so you'll see here that the report data will include these columns. So we have name, cropping acres, water table within 2 feet, bedrock within 2 feet, and crop year. And so I'm just going to create the Excel report. And here you have your custom report. So the group builder is a really good way to just kind of make custom reports. If you're familiar with the Easy Group Builder in V2, it is pretty similar to that. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. Otherwise, I will share a link to the wiki, the help page that we have on this, that'll go through everything in much more detail. So yeah, thanks, Andrea. I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Alonzo. I'm curious, as we're working on switching over to our next presenter, what are some of the ways that you guys as users utilize the Easy Group Builder in version 2? If you could throw it in the chat, what you used that tool for, it would be really, really interesting to kind of see that variety because as I see Alonzo begin to demo some of the things with the group builder, in my mind, I always use the group builder to make groups to group my applications. And to see that we can now, do some more stuff with building specific report types and things, I think there's just a lot of options out there that I'm not necessarily thinking of just yet. So it'll be interesting to hear from you all what you guys use the Easy Group Builder in V2 for. All right, Miss Calla, we're going to turn it over to you to talk about some things related to our maps.
All right. Let me get my screen shared. Okay. I'm going to talk about some of the updates we made to maps in our latest release. And they are mainly focused on labeling. So, one of the things we've heard a lot from people is that the field labels, first off, disappear too early when you're zooming out. So we've made a change to keep them visible longer as you zoom out. Um, but the downside is, in areas that are kind of crowded like this, like you have strip fields or small fields, um, you just can't display all the labels at once without them overlapping. So the map just kind of takes a best guess at trying to declutter these map or these labels. So if I zoom in, you'll see Hillside Middle just showed up and I think Southmost Field there. And as you zoom out, it tries to rearrange them a bit, but then eventually it just removes one of them so that some of the labels are still legible. So, um, this is okay if you have larger fields that are more regular shaped. Maybe it won't be a problem. But on these smaller fields, there's still going to be some struggles, I think, with getting the all the labels visible when you're zoomed far out. Another thing we changed is the color of the field boundaries. They're kind of a brighter green now to make them stand out a little more. I think the darker green we heard from people was kind of hard to see if you were zoomed out. So um, when you get a chance, take a look and let us know what you think of this change and if it's helping or not. So, for more information about field labeling, so one thing we have had requested a lot is the ability to show acres on the map. So you can do that now, and you do that by going into the field layers settings. And there's now a section for label settings. So it's pretty straightforward. You just select, the attribute you want to label the field with from this dropdown. Right now we have field name on by default, and then you can do crop, or you can do any of the acres that are visible on the field overview tab. So I think the big one for people, or the one that I at least have heard requested the most, are cropping acres. So you just click it, and each item you select, the label just, stacks. So you can do as many as you want, but obviously, you kind of run out of space and it's a little bit overwhelming. So you might have to change, or make multiple maps if you want, to show different acres or something. To remove them, you can hit the little X to deselect it, or you can select it from the drop down again, and it'll remove it. Um, the acres values are polling for the current planning year. So if I go into my overview tab, I will see crop year 2026. That's our current plan year. If I change this value here, say to 30, and then go back to the Maps tab, you'll see that it just updated to 30 acres. So it'll match whatever you have here. Um, One thing that means is that you could have a different acres value labeled here than the actual field boundary acres that you've drawn, just because if you've manually entered something, it's going to override whatever this boundary acres is. And then, if you're changing a value in 2025, say, it's not going to update the map because that's not the current plan year. Similarly for the crop, let me turn that on. And then I'll go to the management page and you can see, well, this is a good example of actually what happens in a double crop. But so we have a cover crop in the fall 2025 and then corn grain in 2026. So both crop year 2026. So both of those are getting added to the crop label for this field. Otherwise, it'll just have the one, 2026 crop year. And then this is all linked. So if I change this, you should see it change on the map right away. But again, if I change 2025, it's not going to update the map. Okay, so I think that's everything I wanted to cover for the field labels. Oh, I will say one more thought. Well, actually, I'll save this for later, after I talk about annotations. Um, there's some stuff in the chat. Let me see. Are there questions?
You're all good, Cal. We were just
Okay,
talking about
okay,
the group builder.
thanks. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about then are custom annotations. So this was a feature that existed in V2, but we didn't have in V3 until our latest release. So we've added this feature type annotation, and it's just like editing any other feature type. You go into the edit tab, you go to annotation, you can add a new one, and I'm gonna label this building right here. This is the sheep unit at Arlington Ag Research Station. Wow. So yeah, you'll get that default text is just filled in. So you overwrite it here in the attributes. You can change your font size. You can change your font color if you want to. And then you also have the ability to change your rotation. So you can rotate the label, vertical 90 degrees. Uh, you can also go negative. Well, that was maybe hard to see. So let me go negative 45, and that will turn it, I guess, in a down direction. Versus going positive, we'll go up. So one trick I like to use if I'm trying to get it just right is I can use my up-down arrows to just kind of smoothly rotate it to get it just how I want it. But I will just save that like that. One thing I will mention then is since this is a new feature as of last week, if you converted your plans before this and you were using annotations in V2, they did not convert over. So if you only have a few, you may want to just, manually add them in again. But if you don't want to have to go through that, you can email us our support email and I can help with that process and getting them transferred over so that you don't have to go through the process of adding them one by one. So the other thing I want to talk about then are there's some advanced settings kind of hidden in here, and you don't have to use these, but if you're somebody who has worked with ArcGIS Pro or QGIS, then you might be familiar with some of these tools. So this first thing is the option to lock your label size to a zoom level. And what that means for anyone who has done labeling in GIS is that it's like setting a reference scale for your label. For people who don't know what I'm talking about, I will try to explain what's going on. So the way that web maps work is that they have this kind of um, definitions for the zoom level, or the way we talk about what scale the map is at, like how far zoomed out you are or zoomed in. So you see these little numbers down here. These are the zoom levels. And when I zoom out, you see this little indicator moves from 14. Well, I won't zoom out further than that, but as I zoom in, it goes 15, 16. So basically, the further zoomed in you are, the bigger the zoom level. The further zoomed out you are, the smaller. So when you lock a label size to a zoom level, you're saying that you want this label to always fill up the same amount of space on the map. So when I do this, you'll see that this label will not get any bigger than the area it is covering over this building. As I zoom out, see it resizes to be smaller and smaller until you can't really read it. If I turn that setting off, you'll see, oh, okay, it's resized now to be this font size 16 on my screen. So the benefit of that is that I can always read the label, but the downside is it takes up a lot of space when I zoom out far and then I can't see anything else. So this is just another option for people to customize their labels a little more and make the map look how they want it to look when they're creating their PDFs. The other tool here is this kind of filter, range slider filter. So what you can do is say that I like how this label looks, when I am zoomed out, I don't know, I like it at zoom level 16. But once I get out past zoom level 16, it gets too small to read. So I don't want to see it anymore. So I'm going to drag this slider to be on the current zoom level, which is 16 here. And then I'll zoom out and now see my zoom level went to 15 and the label disappeared. I can't see it anymore. So you could use this if you wanted to have, some label showing when you're zoomed further in. And then, I could add another label for when I'm zoomed further out that I like more for smaller zoom scales. And then I would just take this and call this sheep unit 2. Okay, so now when I zoom out this far, this is the label that's showing. But once I get past that zoom level 15, I get my red label back. So again, you don't have to use these advanced settings, but they just offer some additional options for customizing the labels. And then the final thing I'll say about this is that, oh, the second to final thing I'll say about this is that you can import these as shapefiles if you want to. So we have an annotations feature type in the shapefile import, and you'll see then these are the required columns. So you have to have a column for what the label is that you're going to import. You have to set the rotation, the font size, and then the font color. These are optional, and these are the advanced settings that I was just talking about. You don't have to have those filled out to import. Okay, so now the final thing I will say is that The next thing that I'm working on is the ability to take those field level or field label settings that I first talked about in the layers panel and convert those into these annotations so that you then have the ability to drag the labels wherever you want on the map, um, to address some of those issues I was talking about earlier with labels crowding and stuff. Okay, so I think that is it. Let's see. Looking at the chat, I see there's a question. Similar to crop acres being added to the maps, would tillage type be a possibility to add? Would find this helpful. Yeah, we can add tillage type if that would be helpful. And if there are other things that people think would be helpful, just let us know. And, we can definitely add them. This was just kind of a starting point.
Kala, I have a follow-up question for you. I wasn't necessarily thinking about this until you went to the management screen and were showing the live version of those annotations being on.
Hmm.
Do you know if, like, once you get out of the plan and you go back in, the previous annotations that you had like turned on and like viewable, are those going to be saved, or do you have to go in and turn annotations on every time you go back into a plan?
So for these field label settings, you would have to go in here and you would have to turn them on every time. We could look into making those settings, remembered across your sessions so that it's always shown. Once we finish the field labels to annotations like tool, then those annotations will be permanently there and you won't have to make any changes. So, yeah, it depends on how you're labeling your fields.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, well, I will stop sharing and hand it back to Andrea.
Alrighty. And we will keep an eye on the chat here. So if you guys have any questions about anything that was presented on, please feel free to ask. I'm just going